three major events of the space conquest are to be remembered. The first orbital spaceflight in history took place on October 6, 1957 by the Soviet satellite Sputnik 1. The first flight manned by human being on April 12, 1961 with the orbital flight of the Soviet Yuri Gagarin. And finally, the first step on the moon on July 20, 1969 by astronaut Neil Armstrong. Today, we will focus on the third event.
On May 25, 1961, President John Fitzgerald Kennedy announced the launch of a program that should bring American astronauts to lunar soil before the end of the decade. It's the launch of the Apollo program. He confirmed his decision in another famous speech. We choose to go to the moon on September 12, 1962.
Wernher von Braun is a German engineer. During World War II, he was one of the main engineers who allowed the flight of German V-2 rockets, the first ballistic missile in history. Transferred to the United States after the Germans surrendered, he was naturalized American in 1955 and played a major role in the development of rockets, in particular for the conquest of American space.
A recognized specialist in launchers, he became responsible for the Marshall Space Flight Center created by the American Space Agency, the NASA, National Aeronautic and Space Administration, to develop the Saturn family of rockets. When the Apollo program was launched by US President John Fitzgerald Kennedy in 1961, von Braun took charge of the design of the giant Saturn V rocket, which will play a critical role in the success of US lunar missions.
Man's first step on the moon during the Apollo 11 mission were taken by Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. After an eventful landing in a sea of tranquility, they took the first step on the moon. Armstrong, with the first to come out of the lunar module, said what became a famous quote, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind."
It is the most distant point of the Earth ever walked by a human being, nor even a living being, now to this day, and the first space launch from a celestial body other than the Earth. NASA thus achieved the objective set by President Kennedy in 1961 to land a crew on the moon before the end of the 60s. The aim was to demonstrate the superiority of the United States over the Soviet Union, which had been undermined by the Soviet successes at the beginning of the space age in the context of the Cold War, which then opposed these two countries.
The Saturn rocket launch success rate was 100%, and all crews could be brought back to Earth. In the eyes of the whole world, the Apollo program is a masterful demonstration of American know-how and its superiority over Soviet astronautics, which at the same time accumulate failures. For many Americans, this victory demonstrates the superiority of American society, even if this faith in their system was strongly shaken at the same time by the scale of the students' protests linked to the Vietnam War and the social unrest that affected especially the black minority in big cities linked with the civil rights movement.
The Apollo program allowed the United States to be the first to set foot on the moon, and therefore have the recognition of the whole world, not only but also strengthen the United States as the world superpower. Furthermore, the Apollo program gave an advantage against the USSR because it's the American flag which is planted on the moon and not the USSR flag, which gives the United States an advantage, a sensation of domination in the eyes of the world.
After the Apollo 11 program, American astronauts returned to the moon as part of Apollo 12 in 1969, Apollo 14 in 1971, Apollo 15 in the same year, but this time the astronauts had a rover to move faster on the moon. Then, Apollo 16 in 1972, and to finish, Apollo 17 in 1972, which was the last mission of the Apollo program launched by President John Fitzgerald Kennedy.